Hello, beautiful souls. I hope you're doing so well. If you are new to me, my name is Lauren, and I am healing chronic fatigue and adrenal fatigue by healing old emotional wounds from my past, which we all have. We all have emotional wounds. If we have not done the work to go back and heal them, we all have wounds from our childhood. And the thing is, only for some people does that embed in a way that creates a fatigue illness. And those are the people I'm talking to because I'm one of those people. And I have had tremendous success healing this illness by healing the wounds and doing nothing else. And by that I mean no supplements, no protocols, no doctors, anything like that. Today I'm talking about when a wound first comes up, because that's what I'm going through right now. So I can speak very well to this feeling. When you're healing this illness and you are on a healing journey, you are creating a safe space in your body, you are creating safety in your environment, which is what this fatigue illness requires, whether it's chronic fatigue or adrenal fatigue. You have to create a safe, calm environment in order to stop getting worse. I mean, am I right? We all do that, and so we end up cloistering, we end up shrinking our lives, which can be a very emotional experience. But what we're actually doing is we are creating safety. We're creating emotional safety by creating physical safety in our environment, that we're no longer being stressed and triggered, or at least as little as possible, stressed and triggered by the external environment. It's because it's gotten to the point where our environment is just sucking the energy from us to such an extent that we are getting worse in our illness. And I speak to this phenomenon and what's going on there with the mechanism that's going on in the body in other videos. But so when you're going on this healing journey, when you create that safe space and you calm your body with nervous system practices, with breathing exercises, the one that I talk about on this channel, and I also am making a course on resetting the nervous system with this breathing technique and other techniques that I used to do it myself. But once you do that, emotional waves are going to start to come up because the body sees it's safe. The body is getting the message. It's safe. It's safe to start letting these deep, dark emotions up into the surface. So when you had your illness, those emotions were still there. Oh boy, were they there. They were creating this frequency, this resonance in your energy system that was tangled, that the energy in your body was not flowing properly because of the emotional wounds, and that ended up creating all these system down regulations and distortions, and you start getting organ slowdown and system slowdown, and your digestive system, your liver, your brain, your heart, your cardiovascular system, your metabolism. It's all down regulated because the energy is not flowing through your body properly, and it's because of these old wounds. So what happens is these old wounds are creating all this distortion in your energy field, and that is creating, eventually manifesting as symptoms. So in essence, your emotional wounds are manifesting as symptoms. And they happen in these crazy metaphorical ways that I also talk about on this channel, that you can start to peel apart what your wounds are by creating metaphors of, if this wound was telling me something, was giving me a message, what would it be? Usually your intuition is dead on, or at least pretty close. And that's crazy. So there's a lot more complexity than I'm saying right now. But the thing is, when you calm your body and you you signal to your body that it is safe, they start to rise up in your consciousness. Well, when you have this illness and it's caused by emotional wounds, like I'm saying, when a wound starts to come up, it gets that same patterning that you have. Like if you're like me, you have this completely unconscious pattern of stopping that energy. And so an emotion starts to come up and that energy is stopped. And so what happens? You don't feel an emotion, you feel a symptom. A symptom is getting worse, or a collection of symptoms is getting worse. So I would encourage you to, every time you have a worsening of symptoms, to start wondering, is there an old emotion that could be coming up? So that's what's happening to me. Yay. Now it's yay. A couple of years ago, it was abject misery. It was victim. It was, I am being victimized. This, my body is doing this to me. I can't do this. I can't do that. I am being done to. And I'm at a place, so I've been on this journey for almost 2 years now of healing emotional wounds to heal my illness. So now, 2 years later, what's interesting is it still shows up that way. It still shows up that way when I have a new wave coming up, usually because of what's going on astrologically and how it's interacting with my natal chart. And so it's going to be different for all of us. And that took me a long time to figure out that astrology had anything to do with it. I thought it was just sort of random, that I was just being purged from my soul, and we are, but there's a lot of going on in the energy of the earth. So what happens is an astrological shift happens. My body is reacting to the energy shift, and a wave of that old stagnant emotion that is still in my body starts to come up. And the first thing that happens before I feel anything emotional, at least source emotional, I usually get pretty moody, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like pure emotions. I don't feel a pure emotion. I get symptoms. And sometimes the symptoms like ramp up for weeks before, and it doesn't really hit me that doesn't really get to the point of bad enough that I'm diving deep into it until a certain point, until what's crazy is, looking back, it's usually when the astrological thing actually starts happening. And then I'm like, what's going on? Now I'm looking in like retrospect of what's triggering this and what is it for me? So let me give you an example, the example that I'm dealing with right now. So my acne has been flaring up for a couple weeks, 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks. And, I fell into the trap. I always fall into the trap. But now it's like this, it's a small trap. I have another video on the trap on this channel. The trap is, when your symptoms get worse, think about all the external things that could have done it to you. How am I being done to? Or what am I doing to myself? What external factor is making this happen to me? That's the trap. It's a trap because it's not true. And if you're an empath, or if you think that your illness is emotional and energetic related, it's a trap for you too. Because the real cause of the symptom is emotional. It's an emotion that is stuck in your body that you're not letting up unconsciously. You're unconsciously keeping it down. So my acne was getting worse. So where did I go? I went to my diet. It does impact my skin for sure. So I started looking at sugar, and I started, experimenting with my diet over a couple of weeks. And, I thought that I was making a little progress when I cut out sugar for a few days. And then I started feeling terrible. And I just got this message that was like, that's because you were looking in the wrong place, Lauren. Your soul was telling you you're looking in the wrong place. Thank you, soul. You're right. So I changed my diet, wanting to impact my acne, improve my acne, and then, changing my face stuff. Acne has been an issue for me my entire adult life. It's gotten so much better. It used to be cystic and horrible and painful and throbbing, and I've had quite a journey with my skin. But now, sometimes there have been periods when I've had this like glorious clear skin. It's like, hallelujah. But a lot of times it's like it's like right on the cusp. It's like something tries to flare up and then it subsides, and then I might get a few for a few days, and then they go away, and then, you know, it's more of a it's a thin upper layer. It's like a thin layer now of how deep my skin issues reveal themselves to be. So I tried changing my diet and cutting out the sugar, and by that I just mean fruit, because I never eat sugar anymore. It just makes me feel terrible and want more. But I do have fruit in my diet. I have it for my first meal every day. And so I tried cutting it out, and I felt better the first day, and then the second day and the third day I felt precipitously worse. Again, because why is the actual reason? Because I was looking in the wrong place. Because that's not the answer. Did I see that at first? No, I didn't. Now, maybe this is not a trap for you. This is my trap. I fall into it even 2 years later. 2 years later, I'm still falling into the trap. I'm not going out and buying something expensive and researching and obsessing like I used to, but I'm still falling into the trap, thinking that something external is what's impacting my skin. The other symptom that has been rearing up is my sacral chakra stuff. The protruding abdomen, like the intense bloating every time I eat, and also water retention. And I fall into that trap too, because I'm like, I start thinking, well, did I gain weight? And I start thinking about what I was eating, how much wine I was having, like start analyzing how much I was exercising, and start thinking about, could I have gained weight? This is the trap. This is the trap, but it's not the answer. So it took me a few weeks to remember, oh, right, everything is emotional. For me, maybe for you, if you relate to what I'm saying, or if you relate to being an empath and you have chronic fatigue or adrenal fatigue. Because if you're an empath and you have chronic fatigue or adrenal fatigue, there is a big chance that your root cause are these energetic sources. Because our bodies are so energetically focused that we have to have a smoothly running energy system in our lives in order to thrive. Empaths can't go through their lives and thrive and be happy and healthy when their energy system is clogged. We just can't. It's like we're physically incapable of doing it. So we either develop mental challenges or physical challenges, or both. So finally, I realized, but not until the symptoms got progressively worse. So 2 days ago, my symptoms got exponentially worse. And I was looking in the mirror feeling so victimized because here's what was happening. The wound 2 days ago was when the astrological shift actually happened. The astrological changes started really impacting my body to the extent that suddenly I could see this is a wound. This is a wound, and one of the signs that this is a wound is that I shifted into this victim mentality. And it's painful for me to say, really. It's hard for me to admit that to myself at this point, because it's like, oh my gosh, because consciously I know so viscerally, so adamantly that I'm not a victim, that I have so much power in my life. I've always felt like that consciously. And that's why this powerlessness realization was originally extremely shaming and difficult for me to take on and admit to myself. And to be in a place 2 years later where I still am prone to fall into this victim mentality is a little painful to see, to admit to myself. I don't know if you can relate to this. But then you realize that the truth is, we are taught since we are little that we are victims. We are victims to the external environment. And maybe in past lives or our current lives, maybe we actually were the victims. Maybe we were victimized. And so when you've got those two in combination, the bigger one is actually being victimized, of course. That plays a much bigger role than culture. Cultural influences have a more superficial impact, not superficial, but just more so than those deep wounds that come from actually being victimized or done to. Those are the ones that are harder to heal. But the culture then just like piles it on even deeper to make those core wounds really even deeper. So when you got these, of course you're going to feel victimized. That's the training. That's the default. And your conscious mind can't override that. Until you heal the unconscious wounds, this is based on experience, until you heal the unconscious wounds, your conscious mind can't override those unconscious beliefs. Because if you've heard Bruce Lipton speak, he talks about the fact that of our day, of our entire existence, 95% of our existence is run by our unconscious, and only 5% is run by our conscious mind. And if you think about that, it makes sense that no matter what you put and you try to shift in the conscious mind alone, if you don't shift the unconscious, you're not going to have much impact. You're not going to be able to change much in your life. How I'm shifting my unconscious is by healing the emotional wounds, and this is what I'm teaching. This is what I'm talking about and teaching on this channel, is how to do that. Because it's an extremely effective way to shift the unconscious. So, once I see this in myself and I realize that I am in this victim mindset, and that took at least a day. It actually took 2 days for me to realize that I was, because it's not like I'm thinking in my head, I'm a victim, I'm a victim, I'm a victim. No, I'm not thinking I'm powerless. I'm powerless. I'm powerless. No, I'm not. That would make it really obvious. That would make it really, clear for me to see what I was doing, and then, catch myself with my conscious mind, and then work on shifting it by giving myself compassion, giving my inner child love, and working on what is the wound that's trying to come up. If I'm feeling victimized, there's a wound coming up, because victim is past, because I don't believe that in the current. If a victim mentality is coming up, that's coming from my past. But it took a couple days to figure out that I was even in a victim mentality, because what I felt, and you have to identify what the state is for you. What happens for you when you enter this state of powerlessness, victimhood? Because we all do it. Especially because powerlessness is a really core part of this illness. Believing that we are powerless, not consciously, completely unconsciously, because it was proven to us that we are powerless, either in our early childhood or in our past lives, or both. And that is needing to heal in this lifetime or in our adulthood. We need to heal that. But we can't just heal it by training our minds that we are powerful. Haha, I am powerful, I am powerful. That doesn't work. I can tell you from personal experience, you've probably tried this. Affirmations alone don't work, but they can help. They're supportive, for sure. I use affirmations in a supportive capacity all the time. Like, there's nothing wrong with them. It's just not going to make the big difference that you're looking for, in my experience. So you have to identify what does it look like for me to be in that powerless state? What I often refer to on this channel as a triggered state. What does that look like? So for me, the fatigue increases. The most obvious one for me at this point actually is my mood. It's like this dampening, this shutting off. Incapable of joy. Incapable. It doesn't matter what happens in the external environment. If I am in this triggered state, I can smile, but I cannot feel true joy. I'm in an altered state. It's like a cloud. It's like a veil has descended around me, and everything that comes in is filtered, and I can't see. It's filtered to such an extent that I can't feel it. So I'm partially numb, I'm annoyed, I'm frustrated, and I'm heavy. My body becomes really heavy. I have zero interest in exercise or movement at all. I just want to sit. And I think about food a lot because I have this incorrect belief in me still that food gives me energy. My mood, it's like if the spectrum is this big, I'm only capable of feeling these emotions now. I would say that's like the biggest number one symptom. And that powerlessness of believing that I can't affect change. Actually, a good test for myself actually is I use a positive affirmation and tell myself that I am powerful and that I can do anything. It's gotten to the point that I can actually hear a response. No, you can't. No, you can't. It's like this gurgling up of the unconscious out of me. Now, I don't know if I used to be able to hear that, but I've become so aware of this, hearing my intuition and my body's responses, that I can hear it. It's like, how I picture it is, you're sending this little tiny positive thought, this little heart, and it gets stuck. It stops right at the brainstem. And the response it gets is, no. You're wrong. It's almost got this energy of, I know better. You just don't remember. I, the body, know what you've been through, and your brain doesn't. And so you're not going to fool me. It's kind of eerie what I just did, because I've never really thought about it that way before, but it really feels true what I just did, because I sort of picture the unconscious being that 95% and being your body. It's got this big presence. It's just big and powerful, and it doesn't question its power ever. And this like cute little brain up there thinks it's all powerful, and then it tries to do stuff, and the unconscious is just, if the conscious and unconscious are in conflict with each other, the unconscious is going to win every single time. Because the unconscious is like this big energy that's just like, no. And there's no, you can't get past this energy that's just huge and inflammable. It doesn't matter what you say to it. And it's like your little brain is like this little, bouncing. Once you work on positive thoughts in it, it's like these little cute little thoughts are bouncing around up there, and they're just not impacting the body at all. Because it's like you've got this gatekeeper at at your brainstem, where your conscious mind and your unconscious, which is in your body, stored in your body, where they meet. The big, powerful presence that's 95% of the total energy is always going to win. It's always going to win. So that's a good test. When an old emotion is triggered and coming up, an emotional wave is coming up, it's like that unconscious gets stronger. And so if you send something down like, I am powerful, I can do anything, I can do this, I can do this, I can do anything, I think you will either feel numb, or you will feel like you hear the response of, no, you're not. No, you can't. And it's like, it's calm. It's sort of eerie because it's calm and steady, and it's just powerful. So I experienced that yesterday, or maybe it was this morning. And it was like, wow, I'm in a triggered state. I'm in a triggered state. That means there's a wound coming up. What's the wound? So now, once I identify that I am even in a triggered state, so first comes the symptoms, and they might start ramping up for a while first, like the acne, like the sacral chakra wounds, like not wanting to move forward in my life, feeling slow, heavy energy, was sort of ramping up for a few weeks. Then when it sort of peaked, that's when my energy system enters, my psyche enters this triggered state, this powerlessness state, this victim state. Well then, however long it takes to identify with your conscious mind that you are in a triggered state, that you are feeling powerless, that you are feeling altered, you're not feeling yourself, you're feeling numb, You're feeling dissociated, disconnected, and the thought of meditating, the thought of connecting with your body, the thought of connecting with your inner child is like, no, I don't want to. Those are all signs, at least for me, that I'm in a triggered state and a wound is coming up. So now it's time to do some work to identify what wound is coming up. And that I haven't done yet for this one. And to be honest with you, this is a wound that has been an issue for me for years, and I've known that it was. But every time it gets triggered, this is the one that I have been most frustrated by. And to be honest with you, I can't even tell you at this point whether it's a root chakra or a solar plexus wound. My hunch is that it's both, which means it's originally root chakra. But this has been the most frustrating wound for me because it's been the one that is most quickly puts me into a fatigued, powerless victim state most consistently. But also, it's the one that I have not been able to access the actual emotion. And so what happens then? It doesn't get healed. If you can't get to an emotion that you actually viscerally feel in your body, so much so that you can express and hold space and feel the emotion, whether that's crying, whether that's screaming into a pillow, you can do havening for, whether you're feeling vulnerability and you're crying from vulnerability, whether you're crying from grief, whatever the emotion is that's coming up and vibrating, you actually have to feel the vibration of the emotion and let that vibration move in you and around you and be that vibration for a small period of time so that that vibration can move out of you, out of your aura, out of your biofield. And I have not, with this particular wound, I have not been able to access the actual emotion. And so it keeps coming back. But I just got chills because I have this feeling, because I had this thought that this is about to change. This wound is about to shift for me. This wound is about to shift for me. I believe that I am on the cusp of reaching that emotion. This, to me, if you're like me, then this might ring true for you. This part is the hardest part for me because I have an amazing, and maybe you do too, I have an amazing, incredible, absolutely awe-inspiring ability to dissociate from my emotions, to disconnect from them, except anger. Anger leaks out of me all the time. Out of just irritation and frustration whenever I'm triggered, whenever I'm upset by something, it always comes out as irritability. That's sort of my default. But accessing something that has to do with tears, I can get to the surface relatively easily if I start speaking about it with somebody that I trust. Sometimes I can actually feel like I'm going to cry, and then it gets shut down. It gets shut down. And unless I am completely alone in a dark room, I use my bathroom, I shut the door, there are no windows in there, so it's completely dark. That's when I am fully able to release that emotion. And I had never done full-on crying in my entire life until learning how to heal from this illness. I cried in my life, but they were 10% tears. They were I was holding so much back that I never got to vibrate at the frequency of that emotion. Because every emotion has a different frequency. So my task in the coming days is to start to dig and talk about, verbalize, and deconstruct what is the pain point so that I can get to the actual emotion. I hope it's only, days this time. I'm very happy and proud that the victim state only lasted 2 full days, and then this morning when I had time by myself and I was able to make conscious what was happening, identify it, that I am in a triggered state, I'm in a victim state, powerless state. That means a wound's coming up. As soon as I can hang on, as I can grab that and realize that, that's when the shift starts to happen. It's not like it's immediate, but that's when I know, that's when I start thinking about the wound and what it could be. But there's also the knowledge, what I need to be doing is the last thing I want to do, which is meditate and go in to talk to my inner child. Talk to her, ask my body what it is that it's feeling. Start to pull out, get deeply present with my body. But if you're like me and you enter this triggered state, that's the last thing you want to do. Your body has taught you to not do that. Your experience has taught you to not do that, to stay away from that because that's where the pain is. And it's right. That is where the pain is. The body is holding the pain. And so if you go into the body, you are going to find the pain. Eventually, if your defenses are as beautifully designed as mine, it might take a long time to find the pain, but I hope that your defenses are not quite so skilled. Your defenses are a little bit softer than mine, and you can find the pain more easily, because as soon as you find the pain, you hold the pain and love the pain, but you let the pain take you over in a slightly detached way. But that's dangerous for me to say, because if I say that to myself, it's like I can detach like that. There's no problem. And then I won't feel the emotion at all. It's more like being present for your emotion. It's about being the adult while the child is crying. Being the loving presence in your body while you're allowing this emotion to take over your energy field. And you, in your mind, you know that this is temporary. No emotion lasts forever. No one cries indefinitely. There is a stop. Even if it doesn't feel like there's going to, even if it feels like you could cry forever, you won't. These come in waves. They're usually pretty brief, even though they feel long when you're in them. But when you allow your body to vibrate at that frequency and really vibrate, try to make it vibrate as much as you can when you're in it. Really feel it and just keep trying to the more you let out, the more you heal. And the more you don't have to do next time when a wave comes up like this. So that's my job for the next, hopefully, days, but it could be longer. But I just wanted to make this video describing the first part. It's going to vary how long it is for you, and because wherever you are on this journey, how much practice you have, this first part that it took me a couple days to figure out that I was in this state, took me weeks to months in the beginning to realize this. It took me years to realize that this illness was even emotionally rooted. So it gets shorter and shorter over time. But no matter where you are, you might still fall into that victim place. And it's important to have compassion that's okay to still be there. That you are working to heal it. You're working to heal the wounds that put it there. Because that's going to be easy to shift once the wounds are healed. That belief of being victimized is going to it's just going to vanish. Because it has nothing to hold on to anymore. It's not anchored in these wounds anymore. So, this first part of identifying the triggered state. That's the first step. So, this was a little bit of a longer one today. I hope it was helpful. I so hope it was helpful. If it was, and if it resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button, like this video, share it online. If you subscribe, hit the bell icon to get more of my content. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your day. Take care, everybody, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.